Hey, let's welcome in the Orioles Director of Player Development, Matt Blood. And Matt, thanks for taking time today. Good to be with you via the magic of Zoom.
Hey, Steve. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, I think, Matt, I know you guys were pretty thrilled as an organization with how you handled a pandemic this year in terms of the Bowie alternate camp was run so well. You got some of your top prospects time on the field, whether they were pitchers or hitters, guys that went to the major leagues. They did well. So, I mean, in terms of what you thought that could be, it probably achieved about the max. But today I want to talk to you a little bit about 2021. As we speak today, there's a lot of uncertainties, but we'll assume at some point we're going to see some games in the majors and the minors, and you're going to be staffing minor league rosters. And so, Matt, how will that work with players? We've heard, for instance, Mike Elias has mentioned Adley and Bowie a few times, which would mean he skips a level. There may be some of that. We've heard from you guys of skipping a level based on things that occurred in 2020. Is that correct?
I would say so. I mean, it's going to be a case by case basis, But there are definitely players that made jumps this year and are ready for a challenge. And that's really our philosophy, is that we want to continue to challenge players. We want to put them in environments where they're challenged. And if they have already surpassed in our evaluation a certain level, then we want to move them up to the next level so that they're continually building skills.
Is that very much an individual decision? What works for player A may not work for player B?
Absolutely. Another thing to consider with us is that we've acquired a significant amount of talent this year. Ranging from 17-year-olds to 24-year-olds, 25-year-olds. So we have to also fit in all the players in spots where they're going to get playing time and have the opportunity to develop. So that's something else to consider when it comes to who goes where.
Right, you're putting a puzzle together, and you're trying to get a lot of players playing time, and so matching levels, matching age, challenging them. It is a puzzle.
If you've been paying attention, we've added a bunch of infielders. So, figuring out like who's going to go where and play what positions is going to be a fun challenge. I mean, it's a nice problem to have.
If a player does wind up skipping a level, is it going to be more likely to be someone who was at Bowie, who got in innings, who got at bats, who played against some high-level competition, or are there others who maybe were not there that will be considered?
Well, there weren't that many that were there, that were, players that we're talking about in this profile. So, I mean, I would say that, yeah, those guys have a chance because they got those at-bats, but I would say so do a lot of other players across our entire organization who put in a lot of work this summer. Even if it wasn't in Bowie, it was wherever they are across the country, getting live at-bats or hitting off of machines or whatever it was that they were able to do. So just because they weren't in Bowie doesn't mean that they weren't improving and aren't ready for, the next challenge.
Were you as an organization able to take some guys and say, man, he looks improved just based on video you saw? Because obviously you weren't in person with these players around the country. Or does that more going to happen when you can get them to Twin Lakes Park and get guys on fields?
That definitely happened. We were able to get our hands on a lot of our players at Instructional League, and it showed there, where maybe we thought it might be the case. And then when they came to Instructional League, it was like, yeah, wow, this guy's really been working. He's changed his body. His swing's gotten better, his arm strength, any of these types of things. And you never really quite know until you see them in person. But my expectation is that when we get together in the spring, we're going to see a bunch of players that have had some transformations or have really improved their skills.
And I think we always look at it from, or we often look at it from, I don't want to say negative, but fans will say to me, man, look at those games those players missed. But another way to look at this is for the first time in the career of a player, May, June, July, he wasn't playing minor league games. That gave him a chance to be at the gym or pitch to live hitters or throw bullpens or work with his local high school pitching coach who he's known for 10 years or something along those lines that I think we're all going to find out. Guys took steps forward. We just were not seeing it or knowing about it at the time.
Yeah, it's hard to replace game-like reps, that is for sure. And those were missed this year in many ways. But the downside to playing in games all the time is that you're constantly focused on your day in and day out performance. And it makes it difficult to work specifically on deficiencies and deliberately practice on some weaknesses where in a non-game situation, if you fail, nobody notices and you feel a little more comfortable to get out of your comfort zone. So in that aspect of things, it was definitely a positive, and we saw the return on that type of work this year. And so I'll say, losing the games was not ideal, but there were definitely some advantages to it as well.
We heard from players at Bowie something along the lines of what you just said. Working on a pitch, not worried to giving up that 2-run double that could cost us the game. Boy, it was very different under this circumstance in a live situation where we, wasn't the 7th inning of a double-A game or something. Do you think that's going to change outlook moving forward, whether it's for people for player development or players on things they can do to get better, but they just won't have the same environment of 2020? Let's hopefully forever down the road.
Yeah, it's a good question and a good point. I mean, this is a topic that we've been exploring for a while now, actually, and it's something that we preach to our players. The idea of growth mindset and the idea of desirable difficulties and getting out of your comfort zone. Getting comfortable being uncomfortable. All these things, and it's easier said than done when the stats are being accumulated, there's fans in the stands, and players are getting promoted, this and that, and so those elements make it challenging. And you're right, like maybe this year players will see that and buy in a little bit more to it. But it's something that we've been preaching for a while and we'll continue to do. And we're all humans, so when the lights turn on, like, you want to perform, and I don't think that'll ever change.
I've always wondered about the minors, and I love the minors. If you're like a pitcher and you need to work on your changeup, but you also know it might get hit tonight and your final line is not going to look good, but in the long run, you need to do that. It's still got to be hard to do because the instant gratification isn't there. But yet, I have to do this, and that's challenging.
That's our job. On the staff side, is that we have to give a consistent message to the player, and we have to explain to him the why. And then when that happens, we have to praise him for it. Regardless of the outcome, we have to say that's exactly what we wanted you to do, and look, it's getting better. Who cares what happened in that game? That's why we're doing this, is so that you can improve on this pitch, so that whenever you are being called up to the big leagues, you have confidence to throw that pitch, not because you lost a game in, Delmarva. So that is on us to keep that message consistent to the player. And if we do that, then the player should be comfortable with it.
Seems like Keegan Aiken is a prime example of that. I mean, he's a kid who admitted to us that at one time he threw 80% fastballs in Double-A, and he was told that's not going to work in the major leagues, man. You've got to hone other pitches. And so he did at Triple-A. His ERA was not what it once was, but Chris Holt was saying he did exactly what he needed to do. And then what worked for everybody, including the fans, to see that result pay off in a major league game.
Absolutely. It's a great anecdote of this. And Chris Holt has done a fantastic job with his pitching coaches to find these goals that need to be accomplished for each individual player and speaking a very consistent message to them. And I think there's anecdotes like that all up and down the system.
Matt, last thing for you, and we've heard from major league managers and major league front offices essentially saying, we're not sure how 2021 is going to play out, but we're moving ahead as if it's been in the past, and we'll play 162 games. We'll adjust if we have to. Is the same thing happening in player development as you await more information over the next few months?
We are planning, as things are going to be normal. I wouldn't say I'm expecting things to be normal, but we're going to be ready in the case that they are, and then we'll adjust off of that if and when new information comes out. So we have the staff, we have the resources, we have the plans. I think we're going to be fully capable of making whatever adjustment it is that's thrown at us. And I'm pretty excited, for next year for this staff. It's really come a long ways, and I think next year is going to be a really great year for development in our system.
Things are trending up. The Orioles are number 8 in one organizational ranking, and coming off of the success of Bowie, it's got to be a great time to be part of what you guys are doing. So, Matt Blood, really appreciate you taking time for me today.
Thank you, Steve. Good talking with you.